I gave my parents $2,900 to cover my dad's bills, then found out they used the money to take the whole family on a cruise and left me behind. Stay with me as I share what really happened, and if this story connects with you, please support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing it with someone close to you. My name is Talia Brooks. I'm 27 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the dependable one in my family. If there's a problem, I'm the one who gets the call. If something needs to be paid, I'm the one they lean on. I always thought that meant I was trusted, even loved. One evening, my mom called me. Her voice was shaky, and I could hear the tears in her words. She told me my dad had hospital bills piling up, that they were overdue and stressing him out. Just hearing that broke me. My dad isn't perfect, but he's always been strong in my eyes. The thought of him struggling with bills made me feel helpless. Without a second thought, I told her I'd help. I had been saving money for myself, money I dreamed of using to finally get my own apartment. For months, I skipped nights out, packed lunches, and lived tight so I could build that little nest egg. At the time, it was $2,900, all I had. And I gave it up. The next morning, I walked into the bank, pulled out every last dollar, and handed it to my mom. I told her, "This is everything I've saved. Use it for Dad. I just want him to be okay." She hugged me and whispered, "You're such a blessing, baby." For a moment, I felt proud. I thought I was doing what any good daughter would. That night, I sat in my tiny rented room, eating cheap ramen and scrolling through apartment listings I could no longer afford. I told myself it was fine. Money can be earned again, but family is priceless. My dream could wait. My dad's health couldn't. I fell asleep that night believing I had done the right thing, trusting that my sacrifice mattered to them. But deep down, something in me worried. I couldn't explain it then, but it was like handing over that money had pulled a piece of me out with it. I had no idea that choice, the trust one placed in them, would end up being the very thing that shattered me. I thought I was saving my family. I didn't know I was about to discover just how little they valued me. A few weeks later, life had settled into its usual rhythm for me. I was working extra shifts, trying to rebuild the savings I had completely drained. I kept reminding myself that the money I gave up was worth it if it meant my dad was okay. Every time I saw a new apartment listing, I pushed away the disappointment and told myself, one day. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text from my cousin. It was short and cheerful, just 5 words. "Wish you were here with us." At first, I frowned at my phone. I thought maybe she sent it to the wrong person. I texted back asking, "Where are you?" A few seconds later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't words. It was pictures. Bright, sunny photos that made my stomach twist the moment I saw them. There was my mom, standing at the edge of a giant ship, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. Next to her was my dad, holding a fruity drink with an umbrella in it. My siblings, Marcus and Janelle, were in swimsuits, laughing with cousins and uncles. Everyone looked relaxed, happy-free. Behind them, the deep blue ocean stretched out forever. I stared at those pictures for a long time, not moving, barely breathing. My cousin sent another text. "It's so beautiful here. We're in the Caribbean. We all miss you." My hands started to shake. Caribbean? Cruise. Everyone? That was impossible. My family was supposed to be drowning in hospital bills. My dad was supposed to be struggling. That's why I gave them everything I had. Slowly, the truth sank in. The $2,900 I handed over, the money I had saved for my independence, wasn't used for hospital bills at all. It was used for this, for cocktails, for beaches, for laughing under the sun. They lied to me. They looked me in the eye, told me Dad was in trouble, and then packed their bags for a vacation without me. I felt my chest ache like someone had punched me hard. My throat closed up, and I couldn't decide if I wanted to scream or cry. I scrolled through the pictures again, each one cutting deeper. My siblings were posing with drinks. My mom had a sun hat on. My dad looked healthier than ever. Everyone was there. Everyone except me. The realization burned into me like fire. They never even considered inviting me. They used my sacrifice as their ticket to paradise and left me behind without a second thought. My heart sank into a hollow space I didn't know existed. All those nights I worked late, all those mornings I packed the same lunch to save every dollar. It was all for nothing. I put my phone down and stared at the ceiling. My chest felt heavy, my hands cold. That was the moment I knew. My family hadn't just betrayed me. They had discarded me, and I would never see them the same way again. My hands were trembling as I dialed my mom's number. My chest felt tight, and the images from my cousin's text were still burned into my mind. My family smiling on that cruise, living it up with the money I gave them. When she finally answered, her voice was casual, almost cheerful, as if nothing had happened. I didn't bother with small talk. My words came out sharp, sharper than I'd planned. "Mom, what happened to Dad's bills?" There was silence on the line for a second, and then I heard her sigh. "Sweetheart," she said softly, like she was trying to calm me down, "you wouldn't have enjoyed the cruise anyway. It wasn't your thing." I blinked, stunned. My thing? This wasn't about what I liked or didn't like. This was about honesty. My throat went dry. "So there weren't any bills?" I asked, my voice shaking. Before she could answer, I heard my dad's voice in the background. He must have taken the phone, because suddenly he was the one talking. His tone was steady, like he believed what he was saying made sense. "Talia, listen. You're single. You don't have kids. Marcus and Janelle deserved a break. They've been under so much pressure. You'll have your time one day." My mouth dropped open. The blood rushed in my ears so loud I could barely hear him. They weren't even denying it. They were justifying it. I gave up everything I had, and they thought it was fine because I didn't have a husband or children. I gripped the phone tighter. "So, you're telling me everyone knew about this trip?" "Everyone except me." There was no answer at first, just silence, like they didn't want to say the words out loud. Finally, my mom's voice came back, hesitant. "We didn't think you'd mind, honey. You're always so responsible. We just assumed." Assumed. That word made my stomach twist. They assumed I'd sit quietly, that I'd keep giving and never ask for anything in return. They assumed I wasn't worth inviting, that my sacrifices didn't earn me even a seat at their table. My eyes burned, but I forced the tears back. I didn't want to cry while they listened. My hands shook as anger started rising above the hurt. "You lied to me," I whispered into the phone. "You let me believe Dad needed help when all along you were packing for a vacation. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Neither of them answered. I could hear them breathing, but no one spoke. That silence said everything. I felt my throat close up. My chest heaved, and I couldn't take it anymore. Without another word, I pulled the phone from my ear and ended the call. As the line went dead, I sat there shaking, part fury, part heartbreak. For the first time in my life, I realized my own family had chosen to betray me, and the worst part was they didn't even seem sorry. After that phone call, I sat in silence for hours, the weight of everything pressing down on me. The cruise, the lies, the way they spoke to me, it all made something click inside. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It wasn't even about being left out. This was a pattern, and I had been blind to it for too long. I realized then that I had always been the scapegoat child. The one who worked, the one who gave, the one who was expected to handle responsibility without ever asking for anything in return. If there was a problem, I was the solution. If someone else messed up, I was the safety net. My siblings got to be carefree while I carried the weight no one wanted. Memories rushed back, one after another. I remembered being just a teenager, using my part-time paycheck to buy Marcus new shoes because he needed them for school, and Mom said they didn't have enough at the time. I remembered giving up weekends to babysit Janelle's kids while she went out to parties, acting like motherhood was optional whenever something fun came along. I remembered covering the electricity bill more than once, even when it meant skipping meals myself. Every time, I told myself it was fine. Family helps family. That's what I believed. But standing in the middle of my small, quiet apartment, those memories suddenly felt different. They didn't feel like love. They felt like use. Like I was never seen as a daughter or a sister. Just a backup plan. The truth stung so badly I could hardly breathe. My family's loyalty had always flowed in one direction, and it wasn't toward me. I had poured myself into them, but when it came to giving me the smallest bit of appreciation, the simplest form of honesty, they had nothing. Not even the courtesy of an invitation to a vacation paid for with my own sacrifice. I felt discarded, like I was less than them, like I was an outsider in my own bloodline. They didn't even hesitate to lie to me, because in their minds, my role had already been decided. I wasn't the one who deserved fun or joy. I was the one who made sure they could have it. The tears came then, not soft and quiet but heavy and angry. I cried because I felt foolish, because I had believed for so long that my sacrifices mattered. I cried because deep down, a part of me had always known the truth but didn't want to face it. And I cried because this betrayal wasn't a single moment. It was years of being treated like my only purpose was to give until I had nothing left. As the sobs slowed, a hollow calm settled over me. I knew something had shifted forever. This wasn't just another hurtful moment. This was the last straw. They had taken more than my money. They had taken the place I thought I held in their hearts. And now, I wasn't sure I had won it all. While my family was sailing through turquoise waters and snapping photos in the Caribbean, I was sitting in my cramped apartment, staring at a half-empty packet of ramen noodles. The air was heavy and stale, the kind of quiet that made every slurp echo louder than it should. I had been stretching groceries for weeks, convincing myself that cutting corners was temporary, that the sacrifice I made was worth it. But now, with every bite of cheap noodles, all I could taste was bitterness. When I finally opened my banking app, the screen made my stomach flip. $14. That was all I had left to my name. Not 400, not even 14. I blinked, as if the numbers might change if I looked again. They didn't. I set my phone down and buried my face in my hands. I thought about how long it had taken me to save nearly $3,000. The skipped dinners out, the clothes I didn't buy, the endless hours of overtime. Every dollar had been a step toward freedom, toward finally building a life of my own. And now it was gone, spent on a vacation I wasn't even worthy of being invited to. The anger came slowly at first, like a simmering pot. I clenched my fists and felt the heat rise in my chest. They were out there lounging in the sun, plates full of buffet food, while I was counting quarters in a jar just to make sure I had bus fare for work. And the worst part, they didn't even care. They didn't see me starving or struggling. In their minds, I'd bounce back like always. Reliable Talia. The one who fixes things, who sacrifices without complaint. I lifted my head and stared at the ceiling. Something inside me hardened, sharp and unshakable. I wasn't going to do it anymore. I wasn't going to be their safety net, their backup plan, the invisible sister who gave and gave until she had nothing left. If they wanted to treat me like an outsider, then fine. I'd show them what life without me really looked like. I whispered the words out loud, just to hear them, to make them real. I'm done. It felt strange at first, like trying on clothes that didn't quite fit. But the longer I sat there, the stronger it grew. I wasn't weak. I wasn't worthless. I had been loyal, and they had taken advantage of me. That was on them, not me. The anger didn't crush me anymore. It fueled me. It gave me something I hadn't had in a long time: resolve. I promised myself that night, sitting in the glow of my cheap lamp and the empty ramen packet on my desk, that I would never let them use me again. They wanted me to be invisible, a tool they could pick up and put down whenever they pleased. But I wasn't going to play that role anymore. From now on, I was done being their doormat. When my family finally came back from their cruise, it was impossible to miss the glow on their faces. They walked into the house sunburnt, loud, and cheerful, still carrying that carefree energy people bring back from vacation. My mom's skin was darker, my dad's nose was peeling, and my siblings were laughing like kids fresh out of summer camp. Their suitcases sat in the hallway, and souvenirs spilled out of their bags: t-shirts, seashells, bottles of rum. I stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching them. They expected me to ask about their trip, to smile and nod the way I always did. That was my role, after all. The good listener, the one who cheered them on even when I was drowning. But this time, I couldn't play along. Janelle was the first to start bragging. The buffets were insane, she said, tossing her hair like she was still on deck. You could eat all day and all night, no limits. Marcus chimed in. And the beaches, man, the water was crystal clear. Best trip of my life. Their voices grated against me, each word stabbing like a reminder of what I had lost. I could picture them laughing in the sun while I was sitting alone in my apartment with $14 and a half-empty pantry. I swallowed hard, but I refused to let them see me break. Finally, I spoke. My voice was flat, colder than I'd ever let it be around them. So, where's my $2,900? The room froze for a moment. My mom turned her head slowly, giving me a look as if I'd said something ridiculous. Then she let out a little laugh, light and dismissive. Oh, baby, that was a gift. Family helps family. You know that. My chest tightened. A gift? I had never said it was a gift. I had been told it was for Dad's medical bills. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. No, I said firmly. I gave you that money because you told me Dad needed it for the hospital. That wasn't a vacation fund. I want it back. Before my mom could answer, Marcus jumped in with his usual cocky tone. Talia, don't be bitter. You'll make more money. You're good with that kind of thing. It's just money. Relax. His words made my stomach twist. Just money? That money was my future, my independence, my way out. And he knew it. They all knew it. Yet here they were, brushing it off like I was being petty for asking. I looked at each of them, their smug, carefree faces, and I felt something inside me snap. They weren't sorry. They weren't even embarrassed. They truly believed I was supposed to give and never question, supposed to sacrifice and still smile while they reaped the rewards. I didn't smile this time. I didn't nod or laugh. I stood there, my arms folded tighter, my eyes burning holes into them. For the first time, I let the cold silence sit between us. They expected the old me, but she was gone. My chest burned as Marcus shrugged and my mom laughed. In that moment, something inside me broke. I felt small and used, like my worth was a number on a bank statement. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I walked out of the house with my keys and my phone and calm I could find. I didn't go far. I needed space to think, to let the hot anger cool into something sharper. Sitting on a park bench, I watched other people walk past, families with strollers, couples holding hands. Everything ordinary and ordinary made painful. My hands curled into fists in my jacket pockets. The thought that kept looping in my head was simple. If they think I'm just their safety net, they are about to learn what happens when that net is cut. I didn't want drama. I didn't want a scene. I wanted something cleaner, something that hurt them where it mattered. I'd been the one who rescued them quietly. Now I would be the absence they couldn't fix with a laugh or an "I'll pay you back someday." My plan started practical. No threats, no gossip, only consequences. First, I decided to stop being available on their timeline. No more immediate yes. No more last-minute cash transfers. If they needed help, they'd call and I'd tell them I was booked. I would let late notices and missed payments happen. It would be uncomfortable for them, and they could blame their choices, but they'd feel it. Next, I made a list of every favor I had given over the years: bills covered, rides, babysitting, loans. I wrote dates, amounts, and reminders of the promises they had made afterwards. Not to send to anyone, but to know clearly the balance I had kept for them while they spent mine. It felt strange and powerful to see it on paper. It made my anger precise. I also began to change how I answered questions. Polite and brief replaced long explanations. When Dad called asking for money, I said, "I can't." When Janelle texted begging for a ride, I said, "Sorry, I have plans." Each refusal was a stone removed from their foundation of expectation. It was quiet, but the point was not to punish loudly. It was to create real, unavoidable space. I thought about money, sure, but the plan was about respect. I wanted them to understand that my giving had been conditional on honesty and care. They had broken that condition. My revenge would be to protect myself and let them realize that protection had a cost. On the bench, as dusk fell and the air cooled, the hot anger had gone. In its place was a clear, cold determination. This was not a moment for theatrics. It was a pivot. They had made a choice. Now I was making mine. I folded the paper with my list, slid it into my bag, and walked back home, calm, measured and steady, and ready to be absent in a way they would never ignore. It didn't take long for the cracks to show once I stepped back. A few weeks after the cruise, the phone started buzzing again, the way it always did whenever responsibility came knocking at their door. Only this time, I didn't rush to pick up. The first call was from Janelle. She left a voicemail, her voice frazzled and impatient. "Talia, can you watch the kids this weekend? Please? I really need a night out. I'm going crazy." Normally, I would have rearranged my schedule, stocked up on snacks, and shown up without complaint. But this time, I just texted back one line. "Sorry, I'm busy." I didn't explain. I didn't apologize. I let the silence hang. A few days later, Marcus came knocking. Figuratively, of course, through text messages that grew more desperate by the hour. "Hey sis, rent's due, and I'm short again. Can you spot me just this once? I'll pay you back, I promise." I stared at his words, remembering the way he told me not to be bitter about losing my savings. My chest tightened, but not with guilt, with clarity. I didn't even reply. His messages stacked up, little red dots on my screen, and I let them sit there unread until they stopped coming. Then it was Dad. His voice cracked on the phone, rehearsed in that familiar tone of urgency. "Baby, I hate to ask, but we've got another bill coming up. If we don't pay, things could get serious. You've always been the dependable one. This time, I didn't raise my voice or cry. I kept my tone calm, polite even, but firm. Sorry, Dad. I can't help anymore. You used my last savings on a vacation I wasn't invited to. There was silence on the other end, heavier than anything I'd ever heard from him. For once, he didn't have a quick excuse or a justification. Just breathing, and then the faint sound of him passing the phone back to Mom. I ended the call before she could speak. And that was the beginning of it, the slow unraveling. The tension spread through the family like a storm cloud. I could feel it even from the distance I kept. Janelle sent messages laced with guilt, telling me how hard it was raising kids without help. Marcus tried a softer tone, reminding me we were siblings, as if that erased the years of taking advantage. My mom left voicemails that swung between sweet and scolding, telling me I was turning my back on family. But I didn't bend. Each refusal, each unanswered call, was another thread pulled from the web they'd trapped me in. The more I pulled back, the more they struggled. And the more they struggled, the clearer it became. They weren't upset because they loved me. They were upset because their safety net had disappeared. For the first time, they were forced to stand on their own. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty watching them stumble. I felt free. It didn't take long before the cracks inside my family widened into full-on fractures. Without me there to patch up every hole, they had no choice but to face the mess themselves. And what I heard, mostly through my cousin who loved to spill family gossip, was that things were spiraling fast. Apparently, Mom had started complaining loudly about Marcus. She told anyone who would listen that he was lazy and never stepped up as the oldest son. Marcus fired back, saying he was tired of being treated like a kid and that it wasn't his fault bills kept piling up. Janelle, caught in the middle, snapped at both of them. She told Mom she was unfair and told Marcus he needed to man up and stop expecting others to carry him. The unity they once flaunted, the one they had used to push me into the background, was gone. What held them together before wasn't love, I realized. It was me, my money, my time, my willingness to bend over backward so they could live comfortably. With that piece missing, the whole structure began to collapse. My cousin told me their electricity had been shut off for a couple of days because no one paid the bill on time. Janelle had to stay with a friend because her kids couldn't sleep in the dark without heat. Marcus apparently stormed out during one of Mom's lectures and didn't come home for a few nights. Dad tried to keep things calm, but even he started snapping, grumbling about how the kids never listened and how stressful it was to juggle everything. Each update was like watching a storm from behind a glass window. I wasn't in it, but I could hear the thunder, see the lightning tearing everything apart. And deep inside, I felt two things battling, guilt and satisfaction. The guilt came first. They were still my family, no matter how they treated me. I imagined my little nieces crying when the lights went out, and my chest ached for them. I thought of my dad, grumbling but tired, and for a moment I wondered if I should just step in, just this once, to ease the weight. But then came the satisfaction. Sharp, steady, undeniable. This was exactly what they had asked for when they lied to me, when they laughed off my pain. They wanted my money, my labor, my silence, but not me. And now they were living without me, just as they had chosen. The balance of power had shifted, and for the first time, they felt what I had felt all those years, overwhelmed, unsupported, alone. I let the guilt sit with me, but I didn't let it move me. I stayed firm. I didn't answer their calls, didn't offer $1, didn't soften. Because this collapse wasn't mine to fix. It was theirs. And if they finally learned what my absence meant, then maybe, just maybe, they would start to understand my worth. The knock at my door came late in the evening, long after I'd settled in with a book and a cup of tea. At first, I thought it might be a neighbor, but the rhythm of the knocking grew frantic. When I opened the door, there stood my parents, faces pale, clothes a little rumpled, eyes carrying the weight of desperation. Mom was the first to speak. Her voice cracked as tears spilled down her cheeks. "We need you, baby," she whispered, clutching at my arm like a drowning woman reaching for a lifeline. "You're all we have left." Behind her, Dad looked more tired than I'd ever seen him. His voice was quieter, almost pleading. "I know we've made mistakes," he said, "but we'll pay you back someday. Just please help us this one last time." For a moment, my chest tightened. These were my parents, the people who raised me, the ones I had sacrificed for countless times. I remembered the way I used to drop everything when they called, the way I'd hand over my last dollar if it meant easing their struggles. Old habits tugged at me, begging me to cave. But then the memories shifted. I I remembered Mom's dismissive laugh when I asked about my savings. I remembered Dad telling me that because I didn't have kids, my siblings deserved more. I remembered the cruise photos, their smiling faces while I sat alone in my apartment, eating ramen. And suddenly, the fog of guilt cleared. I straightened my shoulders and gently pulled my arm out of Mom's grip. My voice was calm, steady, more certain than I had ever sounded with them before. "No," I said. "You had me when it mattered, and you chose everyone else. I gave you everything I had, and you treated me like I was nothing but a wallet. I'm done." Mom's sobs grew louder, but they no longer pierced me the way they once did. Dad muttered something about family sticking together, but even he didn't look convinced anymore. I held the door, my hand firm on the handle. For the first time, I wasn't the desperate one in this conversation. They were, and that was the difference. With a final look, one that was both heartbroken and resolute, I said quietly, "I'm not your safety net anymore." Then I closed the door. On the other side, I could hear muffled voices, the shuffling of footsteps, and then silence. Inside, my apartment felt heavier and lighter all at once. My heart ached. It would always ache, because family isn't something you stop caring about, but there was also freedom in that ache. My revenge had never been about money. It wasn't about getting even. It was about showing them that I was more than the role they forced me into. By saying no, by closing that door, I took back something they had stolen long ago, my power. And though it hurt, I finally felt free. Do you think Talia was right to finally shut the door on her parents, or should she have given them another chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really like to hear your perspective. And if stories like this keep you hooked, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next one.